Okay, hello everyone. Today I would like to explain about the nature of reading assessment. And before I start for explanation, my name is Iqbal Ardiansyah with student number A1B224032. And the first is nature of reading assessment. Reading is considered one of the most important skills for academic success. In assessment, reading is not only about checking like whether students understand text or something. It also involves evaluating how students process and understanding the text. And a reading assessment should measure the 4 points, and the first is comprehension of meanings of meaning. The second, use of reading strategies. The third, ability to interpret different types of text. The last is critical thinking in understanding written information. And the next part is genres of written text. Reading materials can be grouped into the three main genres. And the first is academic reading. This includes like journal articles, textbook, technical reports, essays, editorials, test instruction. And academic texts are usually formal and require in critical thinking and careful comprehension. And the second is job related reading, like emails, memos, reports, schedules, financial documents, and manuals and forms. These texts focus on practical information used in professional context. And the third is, or the last one, personal reading, like newspapers, novels, letters, receipts, menus, maps, social media, and comic strips. Like personal reading is usually more informal and related to daily life. Like understanding text genre is important because different genres require different reading strategies, and assessment tasks should match the genres being tested. And I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Ratu Amelia with student number A1B224103. Okay, now I will explain about micro and macro skills for reading comprehension. The first, macro skills. Focus on the smaller, more detailed aspect of reading. This includes abilities such as recognizing grammars and spelling patterns, understanding grammatical forms, and processing writing efficiently. Okay, I will tell it one by one. The first is recognizing grammars and orthographic patterns. So this is in students distinguishes sheep from sheep while reading. And the second is retain language chunks in short-term memory. Students remember the phrase in the middle of the night in the long sentence. And then the third, recognize grammatical word classes, system, pattern, and elliptical forms. Here, a student identifies quickly as an adverb in a sentence. And then the fourth, process writing at an efficient speed. Okay, in here, a student read a paragraph quickly and still understand it. And then the fifth, recognize that a meaning can appear in different grammatical forms. Okay, for the example, is a student understand that she is too young to drive. It means she is not old enough to drive. And then the sixth, identify cohesive devices in discourse. For example, students understand that however signals contrast. Okay, so I give you one example again. When students recognize verb tense in a sentence, they are using micro skills. So basically, micro skills help readers decode and understand the language at the sentence level. And then now we go to the macro skills. Okay, meanwhile, macro skills deal with the higher level comprehensions. They involve understanding the overall meaning of a text, and then interpreting implied message, recognizing the writer's purpose, and using strategies like skimming and scanning. Okay, the first, recognize rhetorical forms of written discourse. For example, a student identifies a text as a narrative because it has orientation, complication, and resolution. And then the second, recognize communicative function of a text. For example, students understand that an advertisement is meant to persuade readers. And then the third, infer implicit context using background knowledge. For example, from a passage about snow, a student infers the setting is in a cold country. And then the fourth, distinguish literal and implied meanings. For example, a student understand the sentence like "It's getting cold in here," so it implies a request to close the window. So when the student said "It's getting cold here," that means it's a request to close the window. That is about distinguish literal. And then the fifth, detect culturally specific reference. So, for example, is students understand the meaning of Thanksgiving in American texts. Then the sixth, use reading strategies such as scanning and skimming. So, for example, a student scans a schedule to find a specific date, like a number or everything like a specific data from the text. I give you one example again. When students identify the main idea of a paragraph, they are using macro skills. So macro skills focus on detailed language processing, while macro skills focus on global understanding. Okay, and then okay, now we go to the next slide about key reading strategies. Next, in this slide, I will explain the key reading strategies that support reading comprehension. The first is bottom-up processing. Start from the smallest units of language. Readers decode letters, recognize words, and apply knowledge of spelling and vocabulary. For example, when a student sounds out an unfamiliar words, they are using bottom-up processing. And then the second is top-down processing. In contrast, top-down processing use the reader's prior knowledge and background experience. Readers predict meaning and interpret the text based on the context. For example, like before reading a news article, student may predict the topic from the headline. And then the third is scanning and skimming. Like I said before, scanning and skimming are rapid reading techniques. Skimming is used to get the general idea, while scanning is used to find the specific information like a number, date, and many more. Then, okay, I will give one more example. Students skim to find the main idea, but scan to find a date or name. Okay, you have to remember everybody. And then the strategic competence. Okay, strategic competence refers to the reader's ability to use helpful techniques during the readings. This includes using notes, recognizing discourse makers, and distinguishing literal from implied meaning. For example, a student may underline keywords to help comprehension. Okay, to conclude, all effective readers combine bottom-up, top-down, and strategic skills to fully understand a text. What they are reading from the text. Okay, I think that's all from my part. So thank you, and now I will continue to the next presenter. Bye.
Okay, so now I will explain about 6 assessment concepts in language assessment. So as we know that language assessment has 6 assessment concepts. So the first one is practically. what does practical mean? So practical means that uh, the task is realistic and manageable like well, because a practical task is not should be not too expensive, does not take too much time, and also is easy to administer and is easy to score. So for example, like a multiple choice test are usually more practical than long essay text. And the second one is reliability. Reliability refers to consistency. So a reliable test gives similar results if repeated, produce consistent scoring, and is not influenced by random factors. For example, like objecting scoring like answer keys increases reliability. And the third one is validity. Validity means the test measure what it is supposed to measure. For example, if we want to test reading comprehension, the test should measure understanding to the text, not just a vocabulary memorization. So validity is one of the most important concepts in language assessment. And the fourth one is authenticity. So authenticity refers to how closely the test reflects real world language use. For example, like reading real emails, reading articles, and understanding advertisements. Authentic tasks make assessment more meaningful. And then the fifth one is washback. What is washback? So washback is the effect of testing on teaching and learning. If a test encourages meaningful learning, it has a positive washback. If it makes teachers focus only on the test grades, it has negative washback. So a good assessment should promote a good learning. And the sixth one, from reading context, so content validity and skill alignment. In reading assessment, the genre and type of text must match the learning objectives. For example, like academic reading for academic purposes, job-related reading for workplace needs, and personal reading for everyday literacy. So this ensures the assessment align with instruction goals. And now we move to the second slide. It's about closed tests. So I will explain about closed tests. A closed test is a reading assessment where certain words are delayed from the text, and students must fill in the blanks. So closed tests are considered integrative tests because they require vocabulary knowledge, grammar knowledge, and understanding of context, background knowledge, and strategic competence. So students must use both bottom-up and top-down processing. So the types of deletion and closed tests are there are two main types. So the first one is fixed ratio deletion. In this type, every 7th word plus or minus 2 is deleted. The method is systematic, objective, and easy to design. So the second one is rational deletion. In this type, the teacher chooses specific words to delete based on grammar, vocabulary, discourse function, and the method allows more control over what is being tested. So the scoring methods. There are two main scoring methods, such as the first one is exact word scoring. Only the original word is accepted as correct. Advantages like faster scoring and more reliable. But it may be less flexible to the students. And second one is appropriate word scoring. Any grammatically correct and meaningful answer is accepted. Advantages is like more valid, fairer, and reflects real language use. However, it may reduce reliability slightly because scoring can be subjective. I think that's all I can explain. Thank you so much.
Jump into the next slide. We will talk about 4 types of reading performance. We have 4 types: receptive, selective, interactive, and extensive for reading performance. First, receptive is the most basic level. So the reader focuses on letters, punctuation, and how letters conic to sounds. So a teacher can practice this by asking students to read a sentences out loud and clap every time they hear a new word. Simple. But it trains letter and sound awareness directly. In another way, teacher can also use minimal pairs and match pictures. Second, selective. Selective goes on step further, vocabulary and grammar. So a teacher can put a short paragraph on the board with some word missing and then show 3 picture options for each blank. And then students must to pick the right one. In another way, teacher can also use multiple choice grammar, match words, and error detection. Third, interactive. Interactive is when things get deeper or connecting ideas across several paragraphs. A great classroom activity is getting a short story into strips, mixing them up, then asking students to arrange the paragraphs back in the right order. It forced them to think about meaning, not just individual words. In another way, teacher can also use scanning tasks and information transfer. And the fourth, extensive. Extensive is global understanding of longer text. So a teacher assigns a one-page article, then opens the next class with just one question to student. What was it about? Tell me in 2 sentences. So teacher now presses on detail, just overall understanding. And another way, teacher can also scanning, summarizing, and one taking attitude students. To sum up, from letters, words, paragraph, and whole text, knowing these 4 types help us pick the right activity for the right moment in our class.